Greetings, everyone. This is Cassandra Floyd, also known as the Daughter of the Fates, founder of the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. I am here today on Friday, December 29th, to continue the read and a wild ambition to finish this book before the first. So this book we have been reading now since October, called Pure Lust, Elemental Feminist Philosophy by Mary Daly. It's game changing. For those of you who've been following along, everybody says the same thing. This book is everything. Sister Mary, the author of this book, Mary Daly, though she is transitioned, greetings, balance. Though she is transitioned, baby, she came through this book to punch guts, to jack jaws, to pull wigs, all the things. Greetings, Carlotta. So we are going to continue today to read Pure Lust, Elemental Feminist Philosophy by Mary Daly. And I'm going to tell you, I think we can pull it off. We are on page, for those of you who have the book, we are on page 373 in the greetings, Shauna Michelle. I'm in the section called Befriending, Weaving Context and Creating Atmospheres. I think we might, listen, if you want to be, we might pull a Jack move and finish this book today, baby. We on 373 and the book ends at page 411. I think today might be the day. You feel me? I will see how I feel. Because again, y'all know I got a second job, and so I'm working nights. But I was like, okay, let me not get too tired. Go ahead and start a read today before I go to work. So again, page 373 of Pure Lust, Elemental Feminist Philosophy by Mary Daly, the section Befriending, Weaving Context and Creating Atmospheres. For those of you who are tuning in via IG, Facebook, or Twitch, please do me a favor and go to my YouTube page, which is at DaughterOfTheFates, at DaughterOfTheFates. So if you're going straight to Google, YouTube / at DaughterOfTheFates, or go straight to the YouTube and in the search engine, put at DaughterOfTheFates. Otherwise, a whole bunch of other stuff will come up. And like, share, subscribe. You understand? All those things. Okay. Spinsters who have experienced something of a process or activity of happiness, lust to share such realization of participation in being. The actualization of this desire requires befriending. Befriending is the creation of a context and atmosphere in which acts and leaps of metamorphosis can take place. Webster's weaving this context are inspired to do so by our knowledge of female potential. That is, it is not the supposition that women are weak that inspires the weaving. Rather, it is certain knowledge of the potency of women, a potency that needs to be actualized, that emboldens us to continue the work. While the knowledge of female potency is certain, it is far from certain that this will be actualized or realized by many women under the prevailing conditions of the state of separation. Therefore, quantum leaps of fate-identified faith, hope, and lust are in order. These leaps are part of the process of itself of weaving. They are acts of metamorphosis, for they strengthen and actualize spiritual capacities. As lusty leapers, women carry the threads of connectedness even further, beyond already realized limits. That is, we are actualizing psychic and physical ultimacy. This leaping and weaving is a continuing act of sharing lust for happiness. In choosing and inventing the word befriending to name such Webster-identified activity, I do not mean to suggest that every woman or even every feminist can quote, be a friend to or be friends with every other woman. It is clear, first of all, that there are limitations of time and energy. Second, there are serious differences of temperament and circumstances which make it impossible for some women to be friends with each other, no matter. To be friends with each other. to be friends with each other, no matter how well-intentioned each may be. There are also, as Jane Raymond has pointed out, women who hate themselves and other women, and there are histories of unfulfilled expectations unfulfilled expectations, betrayal, lack of real caring, and the wall of entrenched differences between friends that become insurmountable. Moreover, a genuine friendship between any two women develops over a long period of time, and it requires basic creative harmony between the friends and a firmness of commitment to each other. Although friendship is not possible among all feminists, the work of befriending can be shared by all, and all can benefit from this metamorphospheric activity. Befriending involves weaving a context in which women can realize our self-transforming, meta-patterning participation in being. Therefore, it implies the creation of an atmosphere in which women are enabled to be friends. Every woman who contributes to the creation of this atmosphere functions as a catalyst for the evolution of other women and for the forming and unfolding of genuine friendships. An example of befriending will illustrate this process. In the late 1940s, the publication of Simone de Beauvoir's greatest feminist work, The Second Sex, made possible dialogue among women about their own lives. For many years, this work functioned as the almost solitary beacon for women seeking to understand the connections among the oppressive evils they experienced, for they came to understand the fact of otherness within patriarchal society. There were other feminist works in existence, of course, but these were not really accessible even to educated women. The Second Sex helped to generate an atmosphere in which women could utter their own thoughts, at least to themselves. Some women began to make applications and to seek out less accessible sources, many of which had gone out of print. Most important was the fact that de Beauvoir, by breaking the silence, partially broke the terrible taboo. Women were touched psychically and emotionally. Many such women, thus reawakened, began to have conversations, take actions, write articles, even during the dreary 50s. It could not accurately be said that de Beauvoir was a personal friend to the thousands of women awakened by her work. It can be said that she has been a part of the movement of befriending and that she has been a catalyst for the friendships of many women. The atmosphere to which her work contributed could not remain stagnant. The air was invigorating, a stimulant encouraging women to make those quantum leaps that bring us into metamorphospheres. Similarly, today, any woman who makes leaps of meta-patterning, whether these be in a personal relationship, in a political activity, in a work of theory or of art, in spiritual understanding, or in all of the above, is a weaver of the network of befriending. So also have the four spinsters who have preceded us, spinning and weaving the context that makes our friendships possible. Befriending, belonging, and rage. Befriending is radically connected to belonging. The latter is that which metapatriarchal women wish for each other and encourage in each other. For only the longing, lusting for being can bring about happiness. Befriending arouses and awakens in a woman her belonging, her telos focus. Befriending is both the flowering of belonging and an important condition for the arousal and sustaining of this ontological passion. Greetings, Solis love. Befriending provides the context in which the low-grade multiple personality disorder, which I have suggested is the contrary of rage, listen, that section that we read a couple of days ago on the multiple personalities disorders and suppressed rage, that section had me beside myself, child. Woo! Anyway, Befriending provides the context in which the low-grade multiple personality disorder, which I have suggested is the contrary of rage, can be confronted and overcome. The manner in which the context of befriending functions to overcome this affliction of dissociation is analogous to the action of a magnet. That is, it attracts the telic focusing powers of being in a woman. For as we have seen, everything that is connected with everything else that is. Only being can call forth being. Only confirmation of one's own reality awakens the reality in another. As she is drawn into the spiraling movement of befriending, a woman becomes a friend to the being in herself, which is to say, her centering self. The intensity of her desire focuses her energy, which becomes unsplintered, unblocked. This focusing, gathering of her dissociated energy makes possible the release of rage. The metamorphosing sage rides her rage. Oh! Yo. Yes. It is her broom. Her rage, baby, is her broom. Her rage is her broom. Listen, this focusing, gathering of her dissociated energy makes possible the release of her rage. The metamorphosing sage rides her rage. It is her broom, her fire-breathing winged mare. It is her spiraling staircase leading her where she can find her own kind, unbind her mind. Woo! Rage is, listen, oh my God. Woo! Child, rage is not a stage. It is not something to be gotten over. It is transformative, focusing force, like a horse who streaks across fields on a moonlit night, her mane flaring. Rage gallops on pounding hooves of unleashed passion. The sounds of its pounding awaken transcendent emotion. As the ocean roars its rhythms into every creature, giving birth to sensations of our common sources and curses. Sources and courses. Rage too makes senses come alive again, thrive again. Listen, rage too makes senses come alive again, thrive again. Women require the context of befriending, both to sustain the positive force of moral outrage and to continue the fury-fueled task of inventing new ways of living. Without the encouragement of befriending, anger can deteriorate into rancor and can misfire, injuring the wrong targets. One function of the work of befriending, then, is to keep the sense of outrage focused in a biophilic way. Yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. The context of outrage. The knowledge woven through acts of befriending is characterized by the woman-identified recognition of connectedness that inspires and sustains the weavers. Websters do not flinch from seeing the complicity of women as token torturers. At the same time, we struggle always to see who in fact holds the institutional power that manipulates and damages the consciousness and conscience of women who oppress other women. Examples of such complicity are legion. Let me tell you something about this book. God damn. Oh my God. Listen, okay? Websters do not flinch from seeing the complicity of women as token torturers. At the same time, we struggle always to see who in fact holds the institutional power that manipulates and damages the consciousness and conscience of women who oppress other women. Okay? Examples of such complicity are legion. Mm, mm, mm. Crones know the horrifying history of mothers used as token torturers of their daughters. Oh my God. Are y'all in the room, child? Are y'all in the room? Are y'all in the room? Listen. You remember the book that I read by Bell Hooks, Communion, The Female Search for Love. There was a whole chapter in that book about the complexities of love between mothers and their daughters in a patriarchal society. Here she's saying, Crones know the horrifying history of mothers used as token torturers of their daughters. Crones born and brought up in America can hardly be unaware of the compounded complicity involved when phallocratic racial oppression further desensitizes and dissociates the woman who has power from her more oppressed sister. Greetings, Asia. Woo! The history of Black slavery in the United States illustrates this situation most tragically. A testimony of Sarah M. Grimke, abolitionist from South Carolina, published in 1839, concerns the torture of a young woman whose independent spirit could not brook the degradation of slavery and who repeatedly ran away. The young woman's back was lacerated to such an extent that a finger could not be laid between the cuts. For those who tuned in late, the book that I am reading is Pure Lust, Elemental Feminist Philosophy by Mary Daly. Pure Lust, Elemental Feminist Philosophy by Mary Daly. We've been reading on this book for a hot minute since October. I'm going to try to finish this book today. Okay? Keep your fingers crossed. In addition, quote, a heavy iron collar with 3 prongs projecting from it was placed around her neck, and a strong and sound front tooth was extracted to serve as a mark to describe her in case of escape, end quote. Sarah Grimke, who personally saw this young woman, stated, quote, her sufferings at this time were agonizing. She could lie in no position on her back, which was sore from scourgings. As I can testify from personal inspection, and her only place of rest was the floor on a blanket. These outrages were committed in a family where the mistress daily read the scriptures and assembled her children for family worship. She was accounted and was really, so far as almsgiving was concerned, a charitable woman, tenderhearted to the poor. And yet this suffering slave, who was the seamstress of the family, was continually in her presence, with her lacerated and bleeding back, her mutilated mouth, and a heavy iron collar without, so far as appeared exciting any feelings of compassion for her, end quote. Come on now, come on. Ooh, come on. God. This, y'all, this. Damn. Yeah. The passive complicity of the pious Bible reading mistress listen. The passive complicity of the pious Bible reading mistress illustrates one way in which hatred could work itself out. Sometimes the cooperation has been more active. In 1853, Solomon Northrop described the breaking of a high-spirited young woman whose back bore the scars of 1,000 stripes because it had fallen her lot to be the slave of a licentious master and a jealous mistress. Northrop testified concerning the agony of this woman, quote, nothing delighted the mistress so much as to see her suffer. Patsy Patsy walked under a cloud. If she uttered a word in opposition to her master's will, the lash was resorted to at once to bring her to subjection. If she was not watchful while about her cabin or when walking in the yard, a billet of wood or a broken bottle, perhaps hurled from her mistress's hand, would smite her unexpectedly in the face. Finally, for a trifling offense, Patsy was given a savage whipping, while her mistress and her master's children watched with obvious satisfaction. She almost died. From that time forward, she was not what she had been, end quote. Black women are aware of this history and faced with the day-to-day experience of racial oppression, are faced with the dilemmas implied in bonding with white women. Together with other women of color, many are creating their own radical feminist analysis. White women, especially in the United States, often feel discouraged by the knowledge of white patriarchal female indifference, racial hatred, and cruelty. In the face of such unspeakable cruelty, vividly illustrated in the accounts of mistresses' behavior and repeated thousands of times over in the country of Reagan and company, what can be said about female identified outrage? Considering the behavior of the slaveholders' wives described above, we may remind hags of certain basic threads in this context of our outrage. The Bible reading mistress of the tortured young seamstress was supported in her dissociation from the victimized Black woman by patriarchal religion, the patriarchal institutions of slavery and racism, and the patriarchal institution of marriage. The vicious mistress of the other young woman, whose jealousy was aroused by the fact that her lecherous lout of a husband raped his defenseless slave, was the product of these same soul-molding Sado institutions. None of these institutions were invented by women or have ever been under the control of women. It would not only be absurd, but ethically wrong to excuse the slaveholders' wives or to excuse contemporary female racist oppressors or to condone a Phyllis Schlafly for her genocidal, biocidal politics. As conscious carriers of phallocratic diseases and executors of phallocratic crimes, such women are indeed responsible. Furies, moreover, will recognize that the obvious corruption and co-optation of women under patriarchy can function to weaken female-identified outrage in women who are sincerely struggling to live a meta-patriarchal morality. That is, token torturers function as instruments of the Sado state, not only as the appointed executors of oppressive acts, but also as discouraging and confusing role models, driving other women into paralyzing guilt and misdirected anger. Patriarchal women then function as rage blockers. Oh! Oh! Listen, y'all. Whoo! Listen. It is predictable and already observable that as a biocidal nuclear arms race continues, as the destruction of the third world people by the United States and other powerful nations accelerates, as racism and poverty at home worsens, many women's energy and motivation for weaving tapestries of female befriending is undermined. This is partly traceable to disgust and horror at the increasing visibility and apparent moral bankruptcy of right-wing women and other female servants of the Sado state. It is also traceable to false guilt for putting the cause of feminism first. Crones then can recognize the time-honored trick of the patriarchs efficiently operating in the 80s. This is the creation of a perpetual state of emergency in which some male-ordered activity is always made to appear prior in importance to the liberation of women. In the face of this onslaught, metamorphic leaps of being will be possible only if there is an intensification of intent and determination on the part of women who recognize phallocracy as the root of rapism, racism, gynocide, genocide, and ultimate biocide. Only clearly focused female outrage can sustain the work of meta-patterning. Only continuous weaving of tapestries of female identified knowledge, that is, our work of befriending, can further the development of meta-patriarchal consciousness and behavior. These crone-centered tapestries can serve as magic carpets for women who choose to fly beyond the Sado state's eternal lie. These vehicles can also serve as maps of passages to meta-memory, befriending, and female friendship. I guess that's a part one. There have been countless, there have been countless great and deep friendships among women. Without metapatriarchal consciousness, however, these are less than they might have been. A metamorphic context is necessary for friendship to thrive. Since friendship implies a sharing of activity, in a special sense, intellectual activity, the necessary context will be one that awakens and encourages women to exercise their powers to their full capacity. It will inspire women to share happiness, to make metamorphic leaps, and to encounter meta-memory. Such a context I have called befriending. Lacking such a context, women do sometimes reach immeasurable depths in their friendships, but there is almost always an atmosphere of tragedy about these relationships, a vague sense of something missing or something lost. Perhaps the most poignant words ever written concerning this subject are the closing lines of Toni Morrison's Sula, when Nell remembers her unfathomable connection with Sula, who had died 25 years before. Quote, all that time, I thought I was missing Jude, end quote. And the loss pressed down on her chest and came up into her throat. We was girls together, she said, as though explaining something. Oh, Lord, Sula, she cried. Girl, 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 girl. It was a fine cry, loud and long, but it had no bottom and it had no top, just circles and circles of sorrow, end quote. Musing women might well conclude that the words, we was girls together, do explain something, perhaps everything. It would seem that Nell's visit to the cemetery after the death of Eve, Sula's grandmother, who had survived Sula by a quarter of a century, occasioned a volcanic eruption of meta-memory. For decades, meta-memory had been smoldering beneath the schemata or categories of adult memory. The milestone that had blocked Nell's deep memory was having been deserted by her man, Jude, whom Sula had taken. This milestone of adult male-identified memory is omnipresent among patriarchally possessed women. Even before it occurs, the dreadful event has already happened in the realm of anticipation. It therefore perpetually functions as a closure of deep memory of female friendship, an alienating foreground memory of the future. Just before her death, Sula had intuited the way this memory block would continue to function in Nell. Quote, when Nell closed the door, Sula reached for more medicine. So she'll walk on down the road, her back so straight in that odd green coat, the strap of her handbag pushed all the way to the elbow, thinking how much I've cost her, and never remember the days when we were two throats and one eye and we had no price, end quote. The one word that was wrong in Sula's prophecy was never. Although it required a quarter of a century, the volcanic eruption of meta-memory did take place. The landscape through which Nell's road became gynesthetically perceptible. She realized the truly significant events of the past as distinct from those conveniently supposed to be significant. Oh. Damn. The girlhood friendship of Nell and Sula was transcendent. They both were dreamers and both understood the odds against them. Quote, because each had discovered years before that they were neither white nor male and that all freedom and triumph was forbidden to them, they had set about creating something else to be, end quote. The fact that so many women have responded deeply to this story suggests such girlhood experiences are not isolated phenomenon. Sula touches chords of remembrance of things past in women who seemingly are totally unlike Neil and Sula. Unlike unlike because of their racial and economic backgrounds, because of training and individual temperament. Yet there is a common memory of setting about creating something else to be. When such chords are struck in women's psyches, the stirrings of meta memory are felt. There are movements of remembering beyond civilization, the tapestry of befriending, which such books as Sula help to weave, as as Sula help to weave, stirs the air, the atmosphere which women breathe. Breathing deeply, muses recall those girlhood moments of being in such a way that these become movements of being. Each woman's ecstatic meta memory is absolutely unique, yet the threads of commonality are luminously visible, harmoniously audible. This ecstatic experience of meta-memory bearing women suggests that it is primarily in the realm of metamorphospheres that Crohn's genuine connections and true diversity can be discovered. When women bond solely on the basis of oppression, more and more forms of man-made commonality and diversity assume importance. Oh my God. Yo. Come on, my God, come on. Woo! Listen. When women, listen, y'all, oh my God. When women bond solely on the basis of oppression, more and more forms of man-made commonality and diversity assume importance, making the potential for deep woman bonding. Masking the potential for deep woman bonding. Are y'all rocking? Are y'all walking with me? Listen. Woo. Let me mark this. Hold on. Yo. This is it. Mm-hmm. Damn. Yup. When women bond primarily on the grounds of male identified commonality and diversity, the hope of metamorphosis becomes an elusive dream. The tragic spectacle of Arab and Jewish women misfire. Yeah. Fuck. Oh, listen, I'm gonna have to read that all over because this is gonna be a because this is gonna be probably a like little clip that I do. So let me just read this straight through without my reactions and my responses, child, because this shit is like too much. When women bond when women bond solely on the basis of oppression, more and more forms of man-made commonality and diversity assume importance, masking the potential for deep woman bonding. When women bond primarily on the grounds of male identified commonality and diversity, the hope of metamorphosis becomes an elusive dream. The tragic spectacle of Arab and Jewish women misfiring rage at each other illustrates this patriarchally created scenario. One could think also of the women of Northern and Southern Ireland. One could think of one's local women's community, where divisions often have nothing to do with the common cause of feminism. One need only think, if one can bear to do so, of one's local hospital. Although there are many skilled and sensitive nurses, it is not unknown for a nurse to identify more with doctor's orders, even when she has certain knowledge that his orders are destroying the patient, than with the patient. If the patient is a woman, a nurse's dissociation from herself and consequently from the woman patient can be astonishing and devastating. Come on. If the patient is a woman of color or is poor, the chances are that her mistreatment will be way worse. Women can easily fall or be pushed into forgetting that racial and ethnic oppression, like the sexual oppression, which is the primary and universal model of such victimization, is a male invention, seeking to uncover the causes of such amnesia and confusion. Furies find the constructs of patriarchal civilization require the assimilation of women and consequently our ghettoization from each other and from ourselves. It is undeniable that women all over this planet have different exigencies and commitments that are overwhelming. Despite and because of this fact, muses continue to weave context of befriending, which point beyond assimilation and ghettoization. Befriending beyond civilization, sirens lure women to the places where female friendships come alive. They thrive. Other works by women that are far less explicit than Sula on the subject of female friendship sometimes have such a haunting effect upon large numbers of women that shrews strongly suspect they contain messages to be decoded. One such work is Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. Many agnostics have noted, at least to ourselves, that Heathcliff is not really similar to any of the males we have known. Obvious nagging questions arise. We know that Emily was penned into using a male pen name, that is, Ellis Bell. Isn't it perfectly logical to think that perhaps she was also penned into transexing the great love of Catherine's life? Barbara Deming suggested some years ago that Heathcliff is the other side of Catherine's self. She cites his cry of agony after Catherine's death. Oh God, it is inutterable. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul. For her part, Catherine had said to Nellie, I am Heathcliff. It is clear enough to viragos from these words and from the emotional context of Wuthering Heights that Heathcliff is the disguise of the female friend of Emily Bronte's dreams. He feels an identity with Catherine that only another female self could feel. The character of Lowry and Louisa May Alcott's Little Women also can be suspected by shrews of being the impossible woman of Joe's dreams, herself and her alter ego. He has the freedom and possibility of exercising his range of capacities, a freedom denied to Louisa, Joe, in rigid 19th century New England. It follows chronologically from this supposition that Alcott's creative imagination could not allow Joe to marry Lowry. One nagging question that recurrently haunts hags is simply, how do such coded works by women work upon our imaginations? It is clear immediately that these do not function like man-made mythic figures who are transexed female symbols, such as Jesus. Whereas Jesus is the product of male myth makers manufactured to serve patriarchal ends, an entirely different purpose inspires the creative imaginations of women struggling to break mind bindings. Such women's works must be decoded because naming has been a part of the terrible taboo, and because the bonding of women has been broken. Thus, Emily Bronte was attempting to name that which is unnameable when the sanctions of the sexual caste system are as overtly operative as they were in her Malay. Whereas the male propagandists of patriarchy are trying to disguise, convert, and possess female powers, attributing these to males, female creators under patriarchy are struggling to express female transcendence, even if this must appear to be incarnated in male flesh. Whoa. Female readers of such woman-authored works very often intuitively understand the dilemma of the authors, for they have shared this dilemma and often have tragically lived it out, translating lust for female friendship into the need for men. Oh my God. Oh shit. Woo. Into the need for men. Such understanding may be subliminal in the author as well as in the reader. Yet the messages are there, and the partially hidden workings and struggles of women's imaginations towards metamorphosis have, to borrow the expression of Neil Morton, a fantastic coherence. Giving the reality of subliminal knowledge, such works, I suggest, have contributed to the context of befriending. Yet they are hardly enough, and if not decoded, they amount to little more than starvation rations. Just as there are vast differences between just as there are vast differences between illicit meta-memory inspiring women's fiction about female friendships and coded implicit fiction on the subject, so also there are essential distinctions between theoretical works written from a feminist perspective and woman-authored theoretical works that attempt to be universal and humanist, ignoring the state of gynocide. In the case of the latter, there has been some degree of dissociation on the part of the authors from the real conditions of their lives, internal as well as external. For there is no humanist perspective. There is no humanist perspective possible within patriarchy any more than there is a truly generic term. Words such as man, men, people, professor, etc., are pseudo-generics, as Julia Penelope has shown. Women who are bamboozled by pseudo-generics and by humanist ideologies, of all of which are male inventions, may contribute to the context of befriending. But such contributions leave something to be desired. Agnostics must pursue the analysis, seriously asking whether theoretical works by humanist women, works written from a pseudo-generic perspective, sometimes can have the power to evoke the volcanic eruptions of meta-memory that are necessary for female friendships to thrive. The experience of readers and students of such works testifies to the fact that in some cases these do stir meta-memory, but usually only if the reader brings to them an already awakened meta-patriarchal consciousness. Since female humanist authors are in some ways more mystified than their male mentors and colleagues, despite noisy and sophisticated protests, men know that man, etc., refers to men, the chances that they can be prime movers of meta-memory are diminished. There is a chronic condition common among Freudian women authors, Jungian women authors, Christian women authors, Marxian women authors, New Ageian women authors, etc. That condition, often unmentioned, is mentorship by men. Ooh. Yo, she going off. That condition, often unmentioned, is mentorship by men. The mental blocks of pseudo-generic women are mentor blocks. Moreover, the mendacity of men mentors is unmendable, unendable, and under the reign of men. It can be mended only with this reign when this reign is ended. For women under men's mentorship, our minds derided, having negotiated the way through courses of, by, and for men, pseudo-generic women are dissociated. The weaving of befriending requires ending men's tending and blending of women's minds. Insofar as happiness is a life of contemplation, and insofar as friendship is the sharing of happiness, female-identified metamorphosing friendship implies the overthrow of male schooling and ruling of women's intellects. This is not to say that nags will not learn their ABCs. Some will even earn their highest of higher degrees. As muses, women use these, but refuse to be masterminded. Scolds, studying, unlearning, burning our bindings and remindings with scalding tongues of fire. The following little description will convey some of the flavor of the activities of metapatriarchal women working on the boundary of academia and beyond. Quote, prudes undo the nasty knots and knots not allowed, not too proud, not too far, not a star of the knot women. Weird spell disaster for the plaster casters of Crohn's crooning. dreaming, screaming, dragons bite the pipes of bearded brother, not it alls. Undines extinguished, distinguished professors. Gorgons eat gurus for brunch. Come on in, Mary. Oh, shit. Yo. Listen. Listen. She said, she said, dragons bite the pipes of bearded brother know-it-alls, undines extinguish distinguished professors, gorgons eat gurus for brunch. The crunch is not heard since the sirens sing loudly. Meanwhile, ready, set, go, shout the maenads as furies light fuses. Salamanders leap through the flames. Enough of their games, shriek the vixens. The entire edifice goes up in smoke. A tasteless joke, crows the cock to the jock, adjusting his mortar board. Thank the Lord, we're all still here. And there they still are, laughs a crone from her star. With the help of the grace, we've made it to the boundary of their fabrication foundry and beyond. Grace and her sisters smile and bow. The crowd cheers long and loud. Then a young soothsayer states simply that his event has been a metamorphic leap in her life of learning, a true commencement of her journey beyond academia, anemia. She too receives a strong ovation for her ovarian oration. End quote. Oh shit. Yo. Oh my God. Listen. Her ovarian oration. Okay. Listen. Befriending and female friendship part 2. The context of befriending is not woven entirely of books, of course. The products of women's creative activism, such as shelters for battered women, rape crisis centers, anti-pornography demonstrations, women's concerts, anti-nuclear protests, the women's health movement, female-identified rituals are fundamental constituents of the context of befriending. Most essential is the fact that befriending is woven of the fibers of women's lives. A wild woman's participation in befriending is conveyed not only by words, but also in a myriad of other ways. Gestures, witty comments, facial expressions, glances, a certain light in the eye, caresses, styles of clothing, ways of walking, choices of occupation, of environment. These are a few of the signals of a woman's participation in befriending, or of her non-participation in this spinning, weaving process. These signals are transmitted and received in a complex way. That they comprise the field of gynergy emitted from and surrounding a woman, which we may call her aura. Muses are learning better to trust our gynesthetic perceptions concerning the focus of another woman's energy. To develop confidence in this matter, Develop confidence in this matter is not to become judgmental in a moralistic sense, but to increase one's ability to assess with whom to connect. That is, communicate one's gynergy under what circumstances. As Jane Raymond succinctly stated, quote, "There are women who have been and are for women. Women must learn to identify such women. Women must also learn to identify their friends," end quote. There are two distinct points here. First, there is the necessity to be able to identify women who are, quote, for women. Such women I would name befriending women. Second, there is the necessity to be able to identify among such women those whom with the development of elemental friendship is possible. A shrewd prude finds and chooses friends with whom elemental relationships can be developed. The elemental, spiritual, physical context, atmosphere in which such friendships can flourish is woven and spun by the vast network of befriending women, many of whom have not even yet met each other, yet all are extremely important for the lives and friendships of all the others. This partially invisible network has commonly been called sisterhood. In the estimation of crones, that word has withstood grievous assaults, abuses, and disappointments over a considerable period of crone time, and is still in good standing. Within this context, women can hope to realize our potential for finding and developing deep, self-transforming friendships. Such friendships imply communication of happiness. For hags, this means sharing on many levels activities of our metamorphic being, risking together our meta-pattern living, our creativity. It means diving together into the wonderful depths of meta memory. It means voyaging together beyond civilization, always, always further and deeper into metamorphospheres. This realizing of the lust to share happiness, to respond with others to the wild calls of belonging, implies waking weird powers of bewitching. Weird women, witches, leap into this subject in the following chapter. Chapter 12. I believe this is the last chapter, y'all. Yeah, I think this is the last chapter. Yep. This is the last chapter. Okay. Bewitching, the lust for metamorphosis. Grace, a free gift of God, to man for his regeneration and sanctification. Webster's Third New International Dictionary of the English Language. Grace, a free gift away from the vicious circle of God and man's regeneration and sanctification. A spiraling, metamorphic leap of bewitching. Webster's First New Intergalactic Wikidictionary of the English Language. Happy hags and harpies, divested of hope for heavenly happiness, focus attention beyond the afterlife to life. The ecstasy of this divine despair bursts conventional bonds with explosions of pent-up powers. Nags gallop through galaxies while sirens sing to the stars. Stiffs leap gracefully among the heavenly bodies as Websters wend our way weirdward, transversing the skies. Crones drive chariots drawn by dragons, hitching wagons to the tails of comets. Wantons wander as celestial tourists. Brewsters practice broomstick riding. Deciding that transportation is no problem, Furies flap up our wings. Weirds sing as skulls proclaim the afterdeath of daddydom. Our time has come, shriek shrews and vixens. It is the moment of bewitching. Bewitching is labors like, as the word itself conveys, according to Skeet's etymological dictionary, which, derived from the Anglo-Saxon Wicca, W-I-C-C-E, is linked with the Norwegian vijga, meaning to turn aside, to conjure away. This links it with the Icelandic V-I-K-J-A, vijga, to move, to turn, to push aside. Thus, which perhaps equals averter. This is one side of the labors. On the other side, greetings, Grace. On the other side is the fact that according to Webster's, bewitch, together with allure, captivate, fascinate, charm, and enchant, is a synonym for attract. Greetings, Connaissance. In recent times, of course, these words have been perverted and reduced to describe feminine seductiveness. These reversals mask elemental powers of attraction. Bewitching, then, implies the exercise of labors like spiritual powers. The labors of witches and weirds can function as shields, averting and warding off attacks of demons. They also act as magnets, attracting elemental spiritual forces, our demons and muses. The magnetizing side is power of presentiating presence. One consequence of this power of presence to ourselves is the power of absence to the fragmenters, who then can no longer afflict furies with the deafening effects of their absence of being. As shield, then the labors of bewitching women avert such lethal presence of absence, achieving the absence of life-blocking absence. As lusty women whirl our labors, we hurl ourselves with them. We move in eddies and spirals, entering the whirling world. Bewitching then involves spiraling change. Describing this kind of movement, Emily Culpepper has written, quote, "It is often difficult to overcome the oppressive momentum of the endlessly repetitive ruts formed by old, deeply ingrained habits. With the model of the spiral in mind, we can value even one small step toward change as being that slight shift of degree which can transform the confining path of the circle, channeling its momentum into a spiraling path that can really move us onward," end quote. Bewitching is the actual leaping, hopping, flying that is metamorphosis, and that is encouraged by the context of befriending. It is the series of movements that constitute that shift of degree which can transform the confining path of the circle. Bewitching, then, is the succession of transformative movements of being that are metamorphic, macro-mutational. It is the creation of fairy space. Often such a moment and movement is experienced and perceived as only one small step towards change. Like light from the furthest star, it participates in macro worlds of motion that are not noticeable to those whose vision is confined to foreground perceptions. The apparent one small step that leaps and whirls through galaxies of inner and outer space appears as the slightest deviation from the fixed and normal necrophilic rut of tidydom. Yet this macro deviation can make all the difference. Patriarchal males know this and therefore attempt to prevent the slightest deviation. Oh shit. Since such moments and movements of macro mutation are heightened hops and hopes of bewitching, they should be seen as ontological in their texture and scope. These are moments of escape from the vampire's vacuums of non-being that suck away the force of life and lust. They are movements of averting the attacks of non-being. The momentum achieved through such Amazonian acts of aversion is at the same time the emotional force that releases archimagical magnetizing energy. The moments of averting, of wielding our bewitching labors as shields against non-being, are magical magnetizing moments and movements into realms of being. That is, the gatherings of gynergy that are mustered for quantum leaps out of Sato society's control have elemental force of attraction into the whirling vortices of living and being. Hold on a second. I need to make a note. And yes. Damn. Okay. Women who achieve the slight shift of degree, transforming dead circles of separation and return, averting the vampire's vacuums by this same movement, attract others away from non-being into the centering journey that is participation in being. Bewitching women thus enchant others, chanting, calling, luring into lust for transformation and transportation into meta being. Like, woo, fuck. Damn. Oh, shit. Listen. Oh my God. Sirens singing the call of the strange, bewitching women rearrange the shapes of our lives. We are shapeshifters in ontological dimensions. Shapeshifting implies metamorphosis beyond static forms that hold down participation in being, which is happiness. It is cosmic in its implications. Yes, 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 yes. It is cosmic in its implications. As Sonia Johnson has suggested the holographic metaphor implies that if one woman changes her way of being, this can affect all women. Listen. Yo. Woo. Shape-shifting implies metamorphosis beyond static forms that hold down participation in being, which is happiness. It is cosmic in its implications. As Sonia Johnson has suggested, the holographic metaphor implies that if one woman changes her way of being, this can affect all women. The inherent logic of this metaphor would seem to imply that such change can and does affect the whole universe. Even to consider such an absurd reasoning implies a shift in the shape of thinking and imaging, a step hop off of the foreground. I hear you, Connaissance, because I'm having a whole ass moment right now, okay? The shape-shifting of bewitching implies acts of psychic and physical ultimacy. These risking acts and leaps require the development. Oh my God in heaven, y'all, listen. The shape-shifting of bewitching implies acts of psychic and physical ultimacy. These risking acts and leaps require the development of natural grace, an athleticism of spirit and body, an unfolding and strengthening of innate capabilities. Shape-shifting also involves eating of the tree of other knowledge. It implies confronting the serpent of wild wisdom. This brings us to the subject of snakes. Snakes and Wild Wisdom, Part 1. Everyone knows the story of the serpent tempting Eve in the Garden of Eden to eat of the tree of knowledge. Mary's relation to the snake is different, of course. Being the model Christian, she crushes it with her foot. Marina Warner writes, quote, "In Christianity, the serpent has lost its primary character as a source of wisdom and eternity. It is above all the principal Christian symbol of evil, and when it sprawls under the Virgin's foot, it is not her direct attribute representing her knowledge and power as it does in the snake brandishing statue of the goddess of the Minoan Crete, but it illustrates her victory over evil," end quote. Wicked women recognize the identity of evil over whom Mary, in her assigned role as a token torturer, enjoys victory. The snake is symbolic of wild wisdom, and its primal associations are not phallic, but rather are biophilic and elemental. Crones are aware that the symbolic association of the snake and the moon is ancient and widespread. Since each time a snake sloughs off her skin, she appears to be reborn, snakes have often been compared to the moon, which appears to be reborn each month. Moreover, this lunar rhythm of renewal symbolically connects the snake with menstruation. The fact that the immaculately conceived virgin is portrayed as crushing the snake is therefore horrifyingly significant. Warner astutely states that although on the one immediate level, the serpent in this scenario has lost its connotations of knowledge and power and simply becomes a loathsome emblem of wickedness, at another level, it has retained its ancient meaning, for it represents a kind of heterodox knowledge and sexuality that Christianity has spurned, end quote. Gorgons and viragos understood very well the mantic meanings of this heterodox knowledge and sexuality. Nags and shrews, soothsayers, sibyls, and skulls proclaim these meanings as good tidings to the universe. Communication of such information can have astonishing results. The following account is just one example of what might happen when women begin to crack the crone crusher's code, seeking our own wild wisdom for the call of wanderlust. Quote, "Upon hearing the elemental message, the snake awakes, uncoils herself, shakes off the foolish virgin's crushing foot. As the token oppressor topples over, cracking her fembot shell. Woo, shit. Cracking her fembot shell. The original witch springs free, hissing and kissing. The snake and the archimage call to their sisters, gleefully gliding from places of hiding. We join the ecstatic reunion. Our gatherings whirling spins, spirals of serpentine grace. Tearing the lace of her discarded veil, the great crone tosses the remnants starward, creating a heavenly trail. We snake dancers playfully follow this. Some hiss with delight as the hag lifts up two snakelets, one in each hand, and waves them on high as she skips through the sky. The Minoan goddess has returned, sings the muses. Unwinding from the exertion of this work and play, the wise virgins, viragos, decide to name our serpentine starry path, which can still be seen in the evening sky, the merry way. End quote. Snakes and Wild Wisdom Part 2. The bland, banal boringness of patriarchal symbolism is illustrated in the usual discussions of serpents as symbols. They are said to symbolize the phallus, eternity, etc., but there is rarely a dragon-identified life in these descriptions. They are abstract in a deadening way, and agnostics can find little in these explanations that can connect us with the meaning of the Minoan snake goddess, or more importantly, with ourselves. The deadness of patriarchal serpent symbolism is an illuminating illustration of the Father's flattening and taming of wild wisdom. Moreover, the crushing of the snake by the Blessed Virgin exemplifies and encourages the crushing of wild wisdom by women. Indeed, many nags would note that only women could be the adequate instruments for such crushing of elemental female wisdom. Oh, 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 oh. Woo, woo. Baby. As an exercise in regaining wild knowledge, it is useful to consider snakes as real elemental creatures, seeing them in a fresh way as metaphors of metamorphosis. Starhawk describes and illustrates this needed freshness of perception in writing of snakes, specifically of a real snake, perhaps the one who lives with me. She continues, quote, I watch her slow movements, feel the strength in her long body, see her skin glow and dull, her eyes cloud over until she looks lifeless. And I wake one morning to find her old skin crumpled like a discarded nylon stocking. And I could say that to me, the snake as a symbol now means not the fall, but renewal, resurrection. Yet that also would be false, because in the language of magic, the symbol has no intellectually assigned meaning. It is a pointer that says, look, pay attention to this thing, end quote. Starhawk then points out that the meaning of the snake tells many stories. For example, her once a month meal and her periodic shedding show, quote, that time flows differently for her than for us, that time is not a thing, but a relationship, end quote. Yet her meaning is not exhausted even by 1,000 stories or insights. Starhawk's point is that the magic that works requires that we let the things themselves in all the richness and complexity of their existence speak to us. Breaking out of the thought forms that are shaped by patriarchal culture into contexts woven by befriending women, crones encourage each other to shift the shapes of our consciousness to connect with elemental creatures such as the snake in original ways. Each leap of direct insight implies tearing away layers of distorting man-made lenses that have corrected our vision, Each leap involves averting the attacks of the trackers who would keep us in line, and it involves attracting and drawing our own latent capacities into fuller realization. These quantum leaps of perception are acts of bewitching. The language that can both express and encourage such leaps of perception is in large measure a language of metaphysical metaphors. These are metaphors of metamorphosis. They are causes as well as effects of transformative acts that transport wonderlusting women weirdward through the realms of metamorphospheres. Perception as shape-shifting experience. Ernest Satchel provides a useful conceptual analysis of the tracks that beat and train our perceptual faculties into dullness. He employs the concept of secondary autocentricity, which refers to secondary embeddedness in a closed pattern of life by which man seeks to re-establish something akin to the security of the womb after the object world has emerged for him in the exploratory play and learning of childhood, end quote. This closed mode of perception, utilitarian and banal, is characterized by recognition of something recognition of something either already familiar or quickly labeled and filed away in some familiar category. In sharp contrast to this womb-tomb classified worldview, which is the prevailing perceptual code of most people in our civilization, there is also an allocentric, other-centered perception. The perceptual experience of being fully alive and fully turned toward the object of perception, Satchel writes, quote, the fully allocentric perception, especially of nature, people, and the great works of art, always breaks through and transcends the confines of the labeled, familiar, and establishes a relation in which a direct encounter with an object itself takes place, end quote. Moreover, quote, in the moments of allocentric perception, at its fullest, we always are at the frontiers of our familiar world, breaking through the enclosing walls of explicit or implicit labels and encountering the inexhaustible other, which transcends all labels with which man tries to capture and tame it, so that he may use it and so that its unfamiliarity will no longer disquiet him, end quote. No crone can read such passages without being stirred to reflect upon the enormity of her hag-identified shape-shifting project, whereas the male or female patriarchally identified artist may risk a direct encounter with the object itself, dismissing to some extent its trite and familiar labels. His or her allocentric perceptions can remain safely confined within the permissible sphere of art. If, however, allocentric perception transcends the artistic sphere, a confined and thoroughly labeled territory within the domain of fatherdom, a quantum leap of perceptual experience begins to enter the range of possibility. Crones recognize wild women ourselves as participating in the inexhaustible other, which transcends all labels with which man tries to capture and tame it, so that he may use it and so that its unfamiliarity will no longer disquiet him. This places us, indeed, at the frontiers of the patriarchally familiar world, and the unfamiliarity of the view is awesome. Satchel logically pursues his analysis, writing, quote, the more original the mind and personality of the perceiver, the more original the mind and personality of the perceiver is, the greater is the likelihood that what he perceives sometimes will transcend reality as known in the everyday currency of his culture, end quote. Oh, snap. The reality transcended by the artist or by any creative person is, of course, the reality of public opinion, having nothing to do with the inexhaustible reality of the world. The very word reality is therefore a battleground between creative, allocentric perception and still closed secondary autocentric perception. This would hold true even for artists whose creative perceptions have not transcended the parameters and hidden agendas of patriarchal assumptions. When the artist is a meta-patterning woman whose perception and commitment concerns reality beyond these paternal parameters and agendas, the word reality is nothing less than an ontological battleground. Oh, the risks are ultimate. The word artist here is not confined to describe one who has acquired specific skills that are legitimated or at least tolerated by the fathers. It names a woman who is meta-patterning, risking, and pursuing metapatriarchal perception and expression. Such a woman is seeking knowledge of the inexhaustible other without the familiar footholds of phallic frameworks. The inexhaustible other encountered by a bewitching woman is, first of all, herself, who flows in underground connectedness with all elemental being. This self is virgin, uncaptured and untamed, transcending the labels of man. This is the self who is capable of direct encounters. A bewitching woman's allocentric perceptions, then, are at the same time autocentric. The famous subject-object split of patriarchal science and philosophy is challenged by the fact and act of her realizing herself as other. Such bewitching acts of allocentric perception, since they are self-centering, self-perception, have nothing to do with selfishness. That is contrary to generosity and magnanimity. Magnanimity. Y'all know what I'm saying. They are perceptions of deep rootedness and connectedness. In such moments, the focusing of the perceiver's faculties on another participant in being, whether this participant be another woman, a cat, a tree, a snake, a river, or the moon, is unclouded and intense. It is not framed by labels and categories. It is not embedded in the closed world womb of the patriarchal familiar. It is consciousness of her own otherness that enables a woman to know the other others. Since women are the primal other within patriarchy, the universal caste system on this planet, women have the primal possibility of allocentric knowledge that can embrace ourselves and touch other others. Wild women, then, are shapeshifters whose other knowledge shields us from the framers and pulls and attracts us into further transformations. Otherness and leaps of transformation. Part 1. The starting point of a woman's metapatriarchal metamorphosis is an ontological intuition of her otherness in relation to all of the shapes imposed upon her by patriarchy. These include symbol shapes, idea shapes. Ooh, the light has just shifted. Let me scoot up a little bit. Okay, let's see. These symbol shapes, idea shapes, relation shapes, emotion shapes, action shapes. The intuition of otherness in relation to all of these is holistic, and it is the root of hologynic metamorphosis. Faithfulness to this intuition of radical otherness in relation to all patriarchal patterns and models is a basic prerequisite for transformative acts of bewitching. This faithfulness, which implies willingness to face unflinchingly these implications of our increasing awareness of planetary gynocide, is fuel required for evolutionary leaping. A woman knows her otherness not only in relation to the androcratic atrocities, however. She knows it most certainly through realizing her elemental powers through evolutionary leaping itself. Knowing the fact of otherness does not imply immediately knowing the answer to every question. It does provide a basis for evaluating questions. If, for example, a woman is asked, "What kind of society do you propose for the year 2000?" she might answer that for her, this cannot assume priority among questions. Rather than being a question that participates in otherness, it is all too tidy and familiar in its format and its assumptions. It assumes, for example, that the planet Earth will be habitable by the year 2000. Yet this assumption is not the core of what is wrong with it. What is wrong with such a question is it implies the underestimation of the ineffable scope of biophilic woman's otherness in relation to all the prefabricated or imaginable shapes of patriarchal reality. Since otherness is underestimated by the questioner, so also is the enormity of the task of shapeshifting. The process of shapeshifting itself is shortchanged in this patriarchal mode of questioning, which overlooks the essential point that the process, the shifting, itself contains the clues to further change. When, for example, a woman first consciously says of herself, "I am a radical feminist," there is a shift in the shape of her soul. Sonia Johnson gives us an extraordinary illustration of such a shift in her account of the circumstances leading to her first saying those words. Johnson's miles and miles of underground corridors full of filing cabinets containing unconscious knowledge of the oppression of women burst open in one evening when a stupid and arrogant Mormon church leader presented his anti-era position. That evening, she fully and consciously heard the lies of how the men of the Mormon church had always loved Mormon women and of the exalted position of these women. Not long afterwards, she wrote, "I am a feminist to the core, and I will be so until I die, fiercely, passionately, reverently, and totally committed to the justice for my sisters on this earth." The justice of which Sonia Johnson was writing is what I would now call nemesis. But the word used is not the issue here. The point is that this was a moment of shape-shifting, understanding, and being. It is significant that the first act Sonia Johnson performed after this epiphany was to let God have it. She killed off the male God naturally for the primal and essential move of shape-shifting that accompanies a truly conscious realization that I am a radical feminist is a rejection of patriarchal religious myth. This will continue to be a long and almost unfathomably complex process, but it inevitably involves the rejection of the male God. At this point, a radical diagnostic analysis requires that we spiral back to the essential ground of metamorphic movement, that is, to the realization of radical otherness of wild women in relation to all patriarchal forms and shapes of consciousness, speech, and behavior. Furies are faced with the fact that it is quite possible that a woman who has not gone through a process analogous to that of Sonia Johnson can say the words, "I am a feminist," without understanding the depth meaning of those words. At certain times and places, this can and has been an in thing to say. Feminist, like any name, can be used in such a way that it functions merely as a label. In such cases, it is merely one variant expression of patriarchal consciousness. It is possible, moreover, that a woman who uses the label feminist without awareness and conscious choice of her radical otherness can imagine that she has bypassed patriarchal myth. If challenged, she might argue that she was never so naive as to have accepted Mormonism or Catholicism or Methodism or Orthodox Judaism or Hinduism, etc. That is, she may refuse to acknowledge the fact of patriarchal embeds in her own psyche. The question thus arises, what criteria are there for knowing whether real psychic transformation and shapeshifting is occurring? There are many, but a few will serve to illustrate the way these can be known. First, actual shapeshifting or bewitching cannot happen without an awesome sense of otherness from patriarchal norms and values. Certainly not all of the implications of the otherness can be consciously known and acted upon immediately. Such knowing and acting are the metamorphic process that continues throughout a feminist's life. In an intuitive, potential way, these implications are known, however, in what might be called a radical feminist intuition of otherness. This intuition is both exhilarating and frightening. For many women, the stimulation that accompanies release from the bindings of embedded labels and lies is so overwhelming, the invigoration so wondrous, that the frightening aspects of this leap seem small in relation to the horrors of spiritual possession that is now acknowledged and exercised. Yet accompanying this experience of exhilaration, there must be conscious awareness of the facts concerning the Sado Society's sanctions against radical feminism, at least in a general way. Consciousness of these sanctions, then, is the second criterion. The sense of otherness, moreover, implies a lust for bonding with other women, for befriending. A radical feminist is committed to the race of women, to our becoming and freedom. Therefore, she feels rage at the oppression of her sisters of all races, of all ethnic groups, of all classes, and of all nations. She identifies with women as women. This woman identification is the third criterion. Genuine metapatriarchal metamorphosis then implies commitment to the cause of women that persists against the current, even when feminism is no longer popular among liberals, and even when many women who had appeared to participate in the otherworld journey as sisters declare that they have moved beyond this phase to a more integrated and more balanced political position, such as socialism, for example, or careerism within the phallic structures. This persistence is a fourth mark of genuine metamorphosis. When a statement such as, I am a feminist, or less commonly, I am a radical feminist, is functioning merely within the parameters of patriarchal labeling, the criteria just described are not met. Thus, a woman may use such a label to describe herself out of a need to belong to a group or an organization where she hopes to gain approval. Rather than experiencing an intuition of otherness, she remains terrified of autonomy and genuine individuality. And shit, son of a bitch. Listen, in this case, she is oblivious to the atrocity level of sanctions against being really for women. It follows then that her bonding with women is on shaky ground, since she has not assessed and faced one of the logical consequences of bonding with women as women, namely punishment by the patriarchy. Finally, it is evident that the woman thus described will not meet the fourth requirement for feminist transformation, namely persistence. She may, however, persist in using the label feminist to describe herself, as long as the true arduousness of being for women is not really required of her. The men and boys in charge of the labeling society will encourage and reward such mistaken self-labeling, since it feeds into the divide and conquer strategy required by them for maintaining the state of oppression and depression. Nags and shrews and scolds learn not to expend inordinate amounts of energy berating such women. Y'all, Mary had a message for us, okay? Damn. Nags, shrews, and scolds learn not to expend inordinate amounts of energy berating such women, although we grieve for them deeply. Fired by faith that metamorphosis itself is contagious and that the intuition of otherness is communicable, nags choose to nag ourselves into further feats of shapeshifting. We are enabled to do this without false guilt, for we know the magnetic powers of bewitching. The shape-shifting acts of bewitching women create vortices of energy which can help pull women away from the traps of labeldom into realization of their and our magnificent otherness. Yes. Hold on. Yes. To accomplish this magnetic field, weirds must also attend to the task of averting and converting the lethal labels thrown in our paths to stop spiraling movement. Bewitching women catch these and shift their shapes to suit biophilic purposes. For metamorphosis is not creation out of nothing, but rather transformation of whatever materials are at hand. We therefore work with symbol shapes, idea shapes, relation shapes of fatherland, recognizing these as frozen and twisted caricatures of the inexhaustible other, out of the flow in which elemental women participate. Crones crack the man-made shells, maenads chew them into better shape, Brewsters cook them, dragons melt them, spinsters spin their substance into verbs. Since shape-shifting is a complex task, our methods are various and multifarious. Further analysis of this process is the work of the following section. Y'all don't have to say with me, but I'm gonna finish this book. We got 11 pages. I may. You know what? I'm not. I'm gonna read it. I'm not. 11 pages is a lot. Yeah. I probably will finish it today though. I probably will finish it today. I might come back a little later. Okay? Because I'm out of town tomorrow. So I might finish it today. Okay. The next section. Otherness and Transformation, Part 2. A agnostic philosopher may wish to pursue the case of a woman who actually has experienced an ontological intuition of radical otherness in relation to the shapes of patriarchy. Let us suppose that this woman has been able to say of herself, I am a radical feminist, and that she has performed the primal act of shape-shifting, that she has cracked the symbol of the patriarchal God. It is crucial that she not falter at this point, foolishly believing that the deed is done. Once and for all. The moment that such an assumption is made, she will fall again into the trap and rut of familiar categories and labels. Our agnostic philosopher might want to ask, oh, dang. Darn, Instagram be with that bullshit, you feel me? Yup. Damn. Hold on just a second. Instagram be with that BS, you feel me? Trifling. Okay. Okay, I'm back. For those that got lost on Instagram, I don't know if y'all are going to tune back in. My bad. Instagram be playing games with my lives these days. You feel me? Okay, so where was I at? Okay, our agnostic philosopher might want to ask this woman, we might call her novice nag, what her next move in the shape-shifting process might be after disposing of the male god. If novice nag is a perceptive pupil, she will respond by pointing out that so long as a nag has even one toe still poised on the edge of the foreground, she has not yet disposed of him entirely. The philosopher congratulates novice nag for her expression of this perception. To pursue the idea further, she reads to the novice nag from Alice Walker's bewitching novel, The Color Purple. She turns to the part where Shug Avery is explaining her experience of, quote, God to Celie, who has come to the point of trying to chase that old white man out of my head. Celie ponders Shug's words, quote, still, is it like Shug say, you have to get man off your eyeball before you can see anything at all? Man corrupt everything, say Shug. He on your box of grits, in your head, all over the radio. He trying to make you think he everywhere. Soon as you think he everywhere, you think he God, but he ain't. Whenever you trying to pray and man plop himself on the other end of it, tell him to get lost, Shug say. Conjure up flowers, wind, water, a big rock. But this hard work, let me tell you, he been there so long, he don't want to budge. Every time I conjure up a rock, I throw it, says Celie, end quote. The philosopher and the nag novice agree heartedly that through repeated experiences, they know that he don't want to budge. The philosopher suggests that nags can profit a great deal from listening to Shug Avery's view that God ain't a he or a she, but a it. And she points out that when Celie persists in asking, but what does it look like? She receives an important answer from Shug. The philosopher continues to read to novice Nag, quote, "Don't look like nothing," she should say. "It ain't a picture show. It ain't something you can look at apart from anything else, including yourself. I believe God is everything," say Shug. She's saying, "My first step away from the old white man was trees, then air, then birds, then other people. But one day when I was sitting quiet and feeling like a motherless child, which I was, it came to me. That feeling of being part of everything, not separate at all." End quote. Hearing these words, our Nagnostic philosopher and novice Nag must feel essentially in accord with Shug and Seeley. The philosopher might want to think of this view as a sort of Nagnostic pantheism, while at the same time cautioning the novice, of course, that such an abstract expression should not be used as a label, but that it could be a sort of shorthand metaphoric phrase that can carry wanderlusting analysis into metamorphic flight. Probably at this point, the philosopher will have noticed the troubled expression that has been clouding the face of the novice Nag ever since hearing Shug's pronouncement that God ain't a he or a she, but a it. Novice Nag is a radical feminist who is very much involved in the process of discovering goddess symbols. It seems to her a mistake to reject the pronoun she in favor of it. Greetings, T. I hope you recover soon, sis. The philosopher is sympathetic to this reaction, but she reminds novice Nag of the complexity of naming the process and of the multiplicity of the points of transition in the spiraling journey. In fact, says the crone, there is much to be said in favor of sometimes using the pronoun it in order to sustain our sense of otherness. Novice Nag appears shocked, but we have just gotten rid of the patriarchal theologians, he gods, and the philosophers and the phallic philosophers, it gods, she cries. Why are you saying this? I am suggesting that this semantic twist can illustrate the spiraling course of shape-shifting, the crone calmly retorts. You see, spirals move backwards as well as forwards, and this is all a part of the same movement. Well, yes, replies the novice Nag, but I wish you would explain further. I'll gladly try, sighs the sage, eyeing the purple sky. But these matters continue to be puzzling and mysterious. That is why we call ourselves Nagnostics, you know. We go on nagging each other and galloping further into the purple pathways. You mean the spiraling pathways? Exactly. Please do continue, says novice Nag. The following account summarizes the philosopher's response to this request. The shape-shifting words of context. The shape-shifting words and context, excuse me. I'm gonna try, y'all. I'm gonna try. It seems that our eavesdropping on the conversation of Shug and Seeley has brought us back to a crucial moment of shapeshifting. We should pay particular attention to the fact that their discussion takes place in a context of befriending. Shug and Seeley together have woven this context of shared, Hag-identified experiences and ideas, which makes possible transformative leaps of perception. I just want to stop and say something. I was trying not to stop and intervene, but let me just say something about this book. Since the moment we started reading this book, there have been moments perpetually, consistently in this book that have shook me to my whole ass core. Okay? For those of you who have not been following, we've been reading this book since October. This book, y'all, is something the fuck else. The timing of us grabbing a hold of it, the way in which I decided that this was going to be the next book that I read. Of all the books, I got 1,278 books in this house, that this would be the next book that I read. You understand? That reading this book directly after having read the Sibyls, the priestesses of Mami Wata and the Roman Catholic Church's Theft of African Prophecy, right? And so this book, for those of you who tuned in late, is Pure Lust by Mary Daly, okay? And every single solitary time I open this book, now mind you, every book that I read to you, is my first time reading the book. Okay. So every time I read it to you, that's why I'm always stopping and taking notes. Because every time I read it to you, it's the first time I'm reading the book. Okay. And so this book has been fucking me up, for lack of a better assessment. Because every time I pick up the book, man, it's like something that I had been thinking about that day or the day before. And then I pick up the book and there is a butt naked, not even subtle, like affirmation or confirmation of what I had been mulling over the day before or the moment before. That shit happened so deep the last time I read, which was what's today? Friday? I think it was Wednesday or Tuesday was the last time I read. I intended to read the book. And I went off on a diatribe for like 2 hours. I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to come back later and I'm going to read the book. But everything that I was diatribing about for them 2 hours was in the read that night. I was too done. Here we are in this book, in the last chapter of this book, written in 1983. 1983, this book was written. The week that everybody in their mama is talking about the color purple. Should you go see the purple? Shouldn't you go see the purple? All these dudes doing all these videos about the color purple and how it pits black men against black women, and all these people talking about go see the movie because it's an awesome rendition. All these opinions, everybody this week, because it just came out Monday. It just came out Monday. Everybody talking about the color purple because of the interview that Taraji P. Henson just did about how black women never get their just fucking due in any area of their life. No area of their life. Are they rewarded adequately for that which they contribute to humanity? Never, right? Everybody talking about all these aspects this week. How the fuck this woman wrote this book in 1983 in the page that we land on in this week, in this last chapter on this day, is talking about for 3 pages, the color purple. You understand? I'm just saying, this book, y'all, is a work of pure, unadulterated witchcraft. You understand? Pure, unadulterated witchcraft is what this book is. You understand? God damn it. Yes, T. Yes. Yes, Soulies, love. Yes. I was trying to move through without saying nothing, but God damn it. This woman saw the motherfucking future. Like she was literally looking into the future and said, these bitches is going to is going to unearth my sleeping book. These bitches gonna be up in here about 40 years from now and unearth my book. So I got to make sure everything is placed accordingly. Yo, I'm having a whole ass moment about this book right now. Anyway, Shug and Celie together have woven this context of shared Hag identified experiences and ideas, which makes possible transformative leaps of perception. This is what she's talking about. These whole last 2 chapters, by the way, the meta patterning and the meta memory through the use of befriending, women getting together regularly in a common vision and being able, as the fates, child, as the fates. She said women as one are the fates, and each individual woman is fate. Is fate, not a fate, is fate. Do you understand what that means? And that we, as fate, have an impact on everything around us. But when we get together in a conscious process of meta patterning and weaving and spinning destiny, this is when we have an impact on the whole planet, on the whole group. This is what the whole last 2 chapters have been about. And that when we can do that, these conscious, deliberate, insidious blocks that have been placed on our consciousness to make sure that the shade never reemerges, because that's all it's for. That everything that we can identify as a wrong, that is what it is for. The sole purpose of every policy, every program, Everything that we witness is a conscious, deliberate, willful act to ensure that she never reemerges. And the only way she can reemerge is through us. That's it. It's the only way. The only way her will can be done is through us. That is it. The only way genuine, true, harmonious justice can be wielded is through us. That is it. That's all. This is the work. This is what she's been talking about for 2 whole chapters, right? So even when she talks about the token torturers, women who do well, who execute well the will of the Father, what does she say? We don't spend no time arguing with these bitches. We say tink, poor tink tink. We recognize what it is that she has fully engulfed and embodied patriarchy, the Father's will, because she recognizes that it offers her and affords her some level of protection, some level of being able to navigate among men's spaces. But she said we don't exhaust any energy combating them. What did she say prior to that in a couple of readings back about men? We know that all men, unless consciously and under the leadership of women, are always undoing patriarchy in their flesh, that they are instruments and weapons used against women to uphold the patriarchy. She said, we don't waste, she said that. She said it. I didn't say it. She said, we don't waste no motherfucking energy arguing with these bitches. 0%. Here we are having to repeat the same shit over and over again. Every day I'm seeing some video, some woman in a debate with some backwards ass man. Why? She said, but you got work to do. And the work is not trying to win men to your position. That is not your work. It is to cast a web that attracts others like you to self so that you can get the work done. She said, cast the web to other women who you can befriend, who have the same worldview as you, so you can get this work done. Don't be spinning your wheels and exhausting your valuable essence, engaging in arguments and tit for tats with weirdos. You understand? She say that. In 1983, this old white woman who went to seminary school. Child, look. You understand? Anyway, it is true that Shug appears to be somewhat in the role of a guide or a teacher, as if she had previously figured out everything about God that she had expressed to Seely. However, there is really no reason to assume that this is the case. In fact, any spinster who has had the experiences of spinning conversations with another woman knows that both hags are involved in the thought-forming process. Even if one appears to be somewhat more in the role of listener, both are intensely and actively involved in the spinning process. Most probably, Seely has brought out the ideas and metaphors expressed by Shug in ways that are astonishing to both. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, Grace. And the men are your own family members most times. Yes, it is important also to note that Shug's words about God are descriptions of moments of other-centered perceptions. She has gotten beyond the labels, the old white man, and therefore the other-centeredness includes herself. That is, in the very act of leaping beyond the labels, she has realized her own otherness in relation to the system represented by the old white man. She has become able to see the real eyes. Therefore, she has become able to see with real eyes. Man, I might have to stop. I'm thirsty. I ain't bring no water over here, and I still got. Oh man, I only got 7 pages, y'all. I only have 7 pages, so we will see. Okay. Let's see. Real eyes. Therefore, she can see that it, God, ain't something you can look at apart from anything else, including yourself. Her perception of reality is allocentric and metamorphic. With the labors of her own wild wit, Shug manages to avert the labelers' weapons, their labels, and to act as a magnet for Seely, attracting her to her own presentiating powers of overcoming the male god. Seely's response is anything but passive. Every time, this is a quote, every time I conjure up a rock, I throw it, end quote. Moreover, soon afterward, a few breathtaking pages later, Seely leaves her oppressive husband, moves away with Shug, her lover, and opens her own business, sewing beautiful and multicolored pants. Furthermore, other women in this story are attracted into the magnetic vortex of metamorphosis. Timid little Squeak, whose real name was Mary Agnes, leaves her man Harpo to continue her career as a singer. Sophie does not leave, but rather self-affirmingly stands her ground at her husband Harpo's house. It could be said that Nettie, the beloved sister from whom Seely had been separated for decades, was drawn safely back from Africa by the power of this magnetic vortex. The fact that there was an incredible psychic connection between the sisters, despite thousands of miles and many years of separation, is demonstrated throughout the book. Even after Seely has received a telegram from the United States Department of Defense saying that the ship in which Nettie and her husband and Seely's children were returning from Africa was sunk by German mines, Seely continues to know that Nettie is still alive. How can you be dead if I still feel you? Seely asks. Woo! The characters and plot of this story, which is utterly crone-identified, place the choice of the pronoun it and of the noun God in a plausible context, which makes such usage acceptable to even the most hard-headed hags. We might contrast this naming with an apparently more radical choice of female pronouns and names for divinity that are contained within a foreground context, for example, an alternative Christian religious service. In the latter case, the context of patriarchal myth is unchallenged. The use of the feminine forms merely suggests that the Christian divinity, like Dustin Hoffman in the film Tootsie, is so superior and magnanimous that he can contain all female values. Just as Dustin could proclaim to Julie that I am Dorothy, the Christian God can arrogantly announce that he is also a she during alternative services, and doesn't mind occasionally being referred to as the goddess, whose history and force he vampirized, contained, and reversed for millennia. It can happen also that even feminist thinkers who are not boxed into the formulae of Christian churches can use feminine symbols for divinity in ways that do not transcend patriarchal categories. For example, fixation upon the Great Mother to the exclusion of the myriad of other possibilities for naming transcendence can fix women into foreground categories that block encounters with the inexhaustible other, stopping the metamorphic process. I don't know if I co-sign on that. The pronoun it, as used by patriarchal philosophers to refer to ultimate reality, functions as a disguise for the unexamined assumption that this ultimate reality is male. The fact that such assumptions are still operative on the level of phantasms in the imaginations of such philosophers can be seen frequently in their religious beliefs. The symbols they employ in their everyday language and their usual patriarchal behavior. That is, the context of their lives displays the agendas hidden by their it. Okay? Listen. In contrast to this, the apparently neutered it and even God as these function. Let's see. I think that was a misprint. In contrast to this, they apparently neuter it and even God as these function in the context of Shug, Avery, and the other crones work as instruments of other-centered intuition and communication. Although many, probably most, novice nags as well as nognostic crones strongly prefer female-identified terms to name ultimate and intimate reality, we recognize that it is only in an other-centered context that these can come alive as instruments of bewitching, that is, as metaphors of metamorphosis. Yes, 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 yes. She just clarified that. Thank you for that. Because I was like, wait a minute, what? Okay. So shape-shifting then is contextual. The occasional appearance of old words such as God and it to name deep reality can serve as a reminder to examine the atmosphere in which words are spoken. Such jarring of the radical imagination can work for prudes as a safeguard against using and accepting Hag-identified new words as taken for granted labels, converting them into mere foreground terms. Websters are aware that new words are new in the sense that they are heard in an other semantic context. The otherness of the context is necessary for genuinely metamorphic leaps of understanding. Yes, words in their context are constantly struggling to keep up with each other. Thus, a woman may hear a new word without having experienced the process, which is the context in which it must be understood. In such a case, she is not really hearing this word in metamorphic dimensions. Or conversely, it may happen that a woman's radicalizing experiences have moved her into a context of perceptions for which she has not yet found words. The shape-shifting words in context, therefore, involves a spiraling, backward, forward, movement of integrity and transformative interaction. One essential indication that the spiraling process is continuing is sustained awareness of the intuition of radical otherness. I'm going to finish reading this book, damn it. Spiraling and metaphors. To a large extent, metaphors are the language and the vessels of metapatriarchal spiraling, that is, of bewitching. When, for example, I say spinsters spin, multi-leveled images, when I say spinsters spin, multi-leveled images of creation and change, when I say spinsters spin, multi-leveled images of creation and change are evoked. If I say Amazons are whirling our labors, other dimensions of movement are conjured, such as images of battle. Muse's muse summons the image of the wild female self-remembering of her genius. A statement such as prudes practice volcanic prudence suggests that the agent, the prude, and her actions of volcanic prudence totally break the bounds set by the conventional images of prudes and of prudent behavior. If I say that tidal time is different from tidy time, a contextual difference is evoked, implying that an other perception of duration can be expected when one lives different and deviant understandings of reality. These examples, as well as hundreds of others in this book, have popped and hopped out of context living thinking in metapatriarchal ways. They could not have jumped and bumped into the writer's mind if there were not a befriending context woven by deviant and defiant women. That context is a net visible to the third eye that stretches across the spiritual abysses that have been manufactured by the fraternity of fragmenters. It is not necessary that every net maker find every metaphor meaningful or appropriate for her own use. The essential point is that these images stir the atmosphere emotionally, awakening ancient connections not only with each other, but with the winds, waters, rocks, trees, birds, butterflies, bats, cats, and stars. A metapatriarchal metaphor works precisely to the extent that it carries a woman further into the wild dimensions of other-centered consciousness, out of the dead circles into spiraling, spinning motion. Bewitching metaphors transmute the shapes of consciousness and behavior. That is, they change the context of perception. They do this by jarring images, stirring memories, accentuating contradictions, upsetting unconscious traditional assumptions, evoking inappropriate laughter, releasing pent-up tears, eliciting gynesthetic sensings of connections, arousing dragon-identified passions, inspiring acts of volcanic virtue, brewing strange ideas. Metaphors, then, are not mere static symbols. Insofar as symbols convey stasis, they function to legitimate the static state. God the Father, Jesus, Buddha, a Tao, function in this way. The Great Mother isolated from other and more daring images also legitimates the standstill society, the stagnation. These images are characterized by what they do not do. They do not transform, jar, stir, arouse, or inspire dreadful, daring acts. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, hold on. Come on. Hmm. Um, yeah, they do not transform, jar, stir, arouse, or inspire dreadful, daring acts. They do not evoke inappropriate laughter, tears, passions, or ideas. They certainly do not encourage gynesthetic sense of connectedness. One of their most essential lacks is the lack of genuine multidimensionality. Symbols, at, le- at least as they are used in patriarchy, are commonly flattened out, frozen metaphors that have been captured, reduced, and reversed into one dimensionality. Indeed, one dimensionality itself, it is itself a primary reversal of the core meaning of spiraling metaphor. Biblical language, especially that associated with Jesus, conveys this deadly flatness, which is usually combined with an inauthentic, utterly predictable emotional hype. The effect is a sort of canned hysteria in the tones of the speaker. Any crone who has played switching stations on the radio, especially on a Sunday, can recall the experience of recognizing instantly that a Christian preacher is speaking, even before she has consciously picked up more than a phrase. The the unctuous intonations of the preachy voice are always the same as she swiftly switches the dial, escaping from the blaring sounds of canned Christian bleeding. She is literally turning away, averting the vampiristic vibrations that would suck her into circles of guilt and fear. Conscious awareness of her natural passion of aversion aids her in averting this morass of monotony. She instinctively and gynesthetically senses that the preachy stereotype tones and phrases echo the dead uniformity of the symbol system that endlessly repeats. Their monopolizing and monotonizing of the airwaves batters the brain to such an extent that even a few fleeting seconds of such routinized intoning and droning constitutes an injection of depression, a sense of banality and boredom. In contrast to this pseudo symbol syndrome, the metaphoric experience is enlivening. One sign of its life-giving force is complexity and multiplicity of meanings, which reflect the complexity of life itself. Thus, the expression race of women, for example, which I have employed frequently in this book, cannot be understood at all if it is heard one-dimensionally. The sense of the act of rushing onward is as integral to its meaning in this context as nation and people. The fact that wild women are rushing onward is evidence that we are a people and that we are elementally kin to a strong current of water. Our race is racing, for we are participating in the flow of being. The race of women, therefore, is a metaphysical metaphor, and it is a metaphor of metamorphosis. Clearly, it is no static symbol. To reduce it to that level is to freeze it into the foreground context, making it almost dull enough to be a suitable topic for an alternative Sunday sermon. Lastly, women, lusty women, of course, do not speak of symbols. For example, we often refer to the labors as a feminist symbol. It can be understood that way, as an image that points beyond itself to deep reality. When we activate its metaphorical potential, however, we whirl it. We hurl ourselves with it. As metaphor, it carries us into new realms, and it changes our perceptions, our being. Used metaphorically, it is an instrument of change, of metamorphosis. Flying with it, we shift from circular reasoning to spiraling emotional knowing and acting. Spiders, dolphins, snakes, and butterflies also can be seen as symbols. However, as affecting and moving our creative imaginations beyond any fixed and assigned meanings, as engaging us in creative interaction with their being, they are metamorphic. The spiraling itself can be called a symbol, but the moment we become active participants in spiraling leaps of being, we have activated this potential as metaphor of meta-being. Just as meta-patriarchal metaphors are not merely symbols, they are also not merely abstractions. It may be argued that everyone knows this, since metaphors are so often contrasted with the language of abstraction. In fact, however, the metaphors of patriarchy are very abstract in the sense of considered apart from any application to any particular object or specific instance, separated from embodiment. When, for example, a man says of a woman, she is a doll, his foreground intention may be to compliment her, but the actual content of the statement is horrifying. One might ask, what sort of spiraling journey could be conjured by the word doll? Perhaps when it is wound up, it marches around the table. But this mechanical imitation of life is its ultimate act. Doll, as a metaphor for a living woman, then, is considered apart from any real application. Most significantly, it's separated from living embodiment. A woman who is pleased to be called a doll is indeed a depressed and depressing condition. Disneyland exemplifies this sort of abstract patriarchal metaphor. Filled with imitations of life processes, it attempts to astonish and please with its gruesome parade of products that are meant to seem bigger and better than life. Watching Ronald Reagan on television can be an exercise in observation of abstract patriarchal metaphor. The image walks and talks, moves facial muscles, imitates signs of emotion and thought processes. Like the Disneyland characters, it is an imitation of life, posing as bigger and better. The image of the president is a mechanical metaphor carrying necrophilic messages of no change, masquerading as progress. Oh, listen. Okay. Listen. She said the image of the president is a mechanical metaphor carrying necrophilic messages, death-loving messages of no change, masquerading as progress. The presbot and his peacekeeper are paradigms of abstract, empty, patriarchal metaphor. In contrast to patriarchal metaphors and abstractions, metapatriarchal abstract thought can evoke metamorphosis. Such agnostic abstract thought, passionate theoretical reasoning that breaks the bonds of patriarchal assumptions, is essential to the metamorphic process. Unlike the prevailing academic abstractions, which function to isolate bits of knowledge, metapatriarchal theory manifests connections on the level of being. Since such thinking is original, almost invariably it begins to assume mantic metaphorical dimensions. Its language is metaphorical in the sense that it is characterized by multi-leveled meanings and imagination arousing newness, evoking spiraling movement. Bewitching through metamorphospheres. The butterfly's arrival at the condition described in the foreground to this realm as hope at large is the consequence of complex transformations or metamorphoses. She has been in turn an egg, a larva, or a caterpillar, a pupa, or a chrysalis, and finally an imago, or a perfect insect. These stages of metamorphosis are encoded in the genes of the butterfly, so that the qualitative leaps which bring her to the final perfect stage of imago are the same in which each individual is the same in each individual and predictable. At least this is the opinion of scientists who are non-butterflies. I am suggesting that the metamorphosis of metapatriarchal women cannot be so precisely described and certainly not so precisely predicted. In her self-transcending dimensions, each woman may be compared to angels, as described in medieval theology. In a real sense, she is, like the angels, a distinct species unto herself. As an essential part of her project of metamorphosis is the discovering of her own species, that is, self-creation. For a metamorphosing woman, the challenge is not one of uncovering some fixed genetic code. Rather, she must break the system code of symbols that has been embedded in her psyche as a kind of pseudo-genetic code that is intended to block her comprehension of her own species, herself. A meta-patriarchal woman must break this code in at least two ways. First, she must figure out its meanings, the meaning behind the meanings she is meant to understand. Second, she must break the rules and laws implied in the embedded code. This is necessary for breaking out of the pseudo-chrysalis in which the master mummifiers have encased her and erased her. In this process, she uncovers her own code, which has been buried beneath the codes of her captors. This covered code is, of course, elemental. It is encouraging to know that the Latin root of the word code is codex, meaning trunk of a tree. For lusty women experience our elemental connection with trees, who are rooted in the depth of the earth and who are in contact with water and air and with the light and with warmth of the sun, the rhythms of the moon and the stars. At the same time, it is also important to know that the codex is also akin to the Latin cudere, meaning to beat, which is the root of the verb hew, meaning to fail as a tree by blows of an axe, cut down. The phallocratic codes are intended to hew women and our sisters, the trees, to cut us down, dismembering us. The code breaking of a metamorphosing woman enables her to protect the trunk, roots, branches of the tree of her life from those who intend to cut her down. It enables her to find and create her own code. This finding and creating is a revolutionary spiraling process. It is a metamorphic process intrinsic to the metamorphosis, carrying us through succeeding transformations of purifications. The code breaking, myth breaking of metapatriarchal women involves expulsion of alien antibodies and anti-spirits. It is a process comparable to the self-purification of our sisters, the elements, who work to expel man-made pollutants from their own species. From the perspective of the patriarchal possessors, a woman who finds her own code is merely a heretic, guilty of some heterodoxy, and therefore subject to a cure. By choosing this view, hold on, I'm about to share your comment, Amber. Let's see. By choosing this view of it, the tamers hope to keep her within her own senescent circle. In fact, however, a truly odd woman is no longer God's woman. Oh my God. Listen. Oh shit. To all you fence riding women. It is, I've always said it. To me, it is such a contradiction for a woman to be a feminist and a Christian, for a woman to consider herself a feminist and a Muslim, for a woman to consider herself a feminist and a practicing Jew. Not Jew by heritage, Jew by practice. It is such a contradiction to me that always bewilders me, child. How How the mathematics add up? You feel me? Yes, Solis Love. Yes. Hold on. I'm gonna share this for y'all listening on IG. I'll share a couple of these comments since y'all can't see on the screen. She put imitation of life in this joint too. My goodness. I look forward to joining the book club next month. True. Solis Love says this last chapter feels like a graduation onto a fresh way, clearer path with fresh, way clearer eyes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. Okay, hold on. Where was that at? Okay. Yes, it says, in fact, however, a truly odd woman is no longer God's woman. In relation to the master plan, women who find out our own codes are elemental errata. That is, we are errors. In relation to that plan, metamorphosing women are living, breathing, self-perpetuating mistakes. We are meta-patriarchal mutations. Oh! Exploring the ranges of these changes is the quest of this vast realm, whose spheres are times and spaces of supernatural graces. Musing beyond stability and stasis, women opt for transformation, mutation, achieving this through crone-centered creation. A basic block inhibiting such leaps is fear of becoming out of control. Women continually express their fear that women, their mothers, their daughters, their patients, their students, their selves will get, quote, out of control. As Denise Connors has suggested, the question that is unasked is out of whose control? The problem is that such fearful women filled with embedded fears are too much under control, phallocratic control. This is control by role. The word control unmasks itself when we recognize that it is derived from contre role, the old form of counter role, meaning a duplicate register used to verify the official or first made role. Women who are under control and patriarchy are reduced to the state of duplicates, registers, recordings of the official or approved man-made female role. Thus, the gynocidal machine continues to roll, running us over, running us down. It is quite understandable that males in power should fear losing control. It may seem less comprehensible at first that women should experience terror of getting out of control. However, adherence to the role for women has been equated with safety, shelter, and most serious of all, sanity. Y'all, did y'all hear that? Oh, she said, it is quite understandable that males in power should fear us losing control. It may seem less comprehensible at first that women should experience terror of, quote, getting out of control. Getting out of control. However, adherence to the role for women laid out by men has been equated with what? Safety, shelter, and most serious of all, sanity. Right? Women of the right and women of the left, as well as women of the middle road, have more to dread than abandonment by their male protectors. The patriarchally embedded fears have made women terrified of our own selves, our own souls, our own sanity. Succumbing to these terrors would mean settling for insanity. Woo! Woo! Oh. Child. Woo! Oh. Transformation is the idea and reality whose time has come. Of course, it is true that metamorphosis of metapatriarchal women is not entirely new. Crones know in our bones that since Since the beginnings of patriarchy, there have always been some women engaged in breaking the cococratic codes, finding their own codes. At this time, however, the destroyers have moved further on their death march than ever before, attacking and poisoning the elements, filling the earth with their lethal emissions, invading women's souls. At this time, the bewitching, cognitive, effective minority, patriarchal women, meta-patriarchal women, is bonding, participating in the process of our race. Whoa. Grace Jackson says, it is so correct. The last feminist conversation I had with my mother resulted in her sinisterly saying that what I was saying was the truth and that those who spoke the truth rarely survived it. Let's see. On one level, it is true that the codes underlying the embedded patriarchal codes are not new. They are the vast virgin potential yet to be realized. Yet they are also new. For the actualizing of this potential potency is the creation of further potential, the furthering of future possibilities. True to our memory of archospheres, bewitching women continue to originate, mutate, metamutate, armed with the impassioned virtues acquired in the realm of fire. Wild, weird women spiral further through the metamorphospheres. This is our knowing time, our growing time. It is knowing time to compromise. Erratically, wonder women move through this realm, keeping in touch with the natural graces, yearning to live the richness of being in rainbow radiant diversity. We race with the grace of belonging, decoding the myths and unsnapping the traps that have kept us from bonding. We weave with the grace of befriending. Aroused by the touch of our wonder-filled woman lust, wanderers fly with the grace of bewitching, unfolding our spiritual powers, like flowers, like serpents, like dragons, like angels. We spiral in rhythms of weird word creation, leaping with the wanderlust, weaving new wonders. We intend to be forecrones of agnostic nations. As dreamers, we glimpse our side reel cities that gleam in the heavens like stars of the sea. They call us always now to be. That, my friends, is the end of this book. We have finished. Yay! Oh my gosh, I got chills everywhere, y'all. I got chills everywhere. So it is done. It is done. It is done. So it's kind of bittersweet. Every time I finish a book, I'm like, oh, it's over, right? So thank you, riders who stayed on for the whole, 2 hours and 22 minutes now. So that is it. Yay! I'm seeing the applauses in the comments. Yay! So, like I said, like I have been saying, and now that I'm done reading the book and it is no longer going to take up headspace of when I'm going to finish, I'm going to start I'm going to start preparing the material for the resuming of the book club. So we attempted, I think in November, to start the book club, but it was just a lot. I had a lot going on. I still have a lot going on. It's that time of the year. Everybody's crazy busy. I was like, you know what? Let me be realistic. I'm just going to table book club until after we're done with the book. All right. So now I have the ability to go into the millions of notes that I've taken in this book over this 3 months that we've been reading the book, and start preparing material, subject matter, and things like that for the deep dive into this book that will be the book club. For those of you who are not on Facebook, go onto Facebook and search the Great Cosmic Mother Book Club. There are 2 Great Cosmic Mothers. So search the Great Cosmic Mother Book Club. This is where I will be putting all of the updates about the coming book clubs. Okay. So anytime I'm going to be like, yes, this week, book club, these are the chapters that we're going over, whatever, these are the questions, whatever, you will get that on the Great Cosmic Mother Book Club on Facebook, the Great Cosmic Mother Book Club group on Facebook. If you, I think I had to turn it private because spammers were spamming my page. Cantomble, how you doing? So you can you can email me at releaseheartcenter@gmail.com, releaseheartcenter@gmail.com, and give me your Facebook handle. That way I can send you an invite. If you can't find it, because I did have to turn it into a private group. If you can't find it for whatever reason on Facebook, email me at releaseheartcenter@gmail.com, and I will send you an invite to the book club so that you can enter the book club and begin to get the updates for the book club, which will be starting, I don't know the date right offhand, but which will be starting the second Wednesday in January. Okay? The second Wednesday in January. So that is that. Other housekeeping, if you will, my YouTube channel. Please support my YouTube channel. Please share my YouTube channel. Please support my TikTok channel, which is also Daughter of the Fates. So my YouTube channel is Daughter of the Fates. My TikTok is Daughter of the Fates with underscores under each word. Okay. So Daughter of the Fates on YouTube, Daughter of the Fates on TikTok with underscores. Support, follow, like, and share those two sites, if you will, as soon as you can, if you have not already. Anytime that I do a short that I post on TikTok, my request is that if anything that I post has moved you in any way, if it's moved you to comment, then please do me a favor and share that, especially my shorts. Share my shorts with at least 10 people. Okay? That's the assignment that I'm asking you guys to live up to. If what I have said to you moves you in any way, share that content with at least 10 people. Okay? That's an easy thing to do. So share, like, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. Come on, Grace. The intragender policing has got to stop. They think it's protection, and perhaps it was at some point, but it's time for this to stop. Yes. But I will offer this to Amber McZeal. Again, one of the things she said is we don't spend our wheels, don't spend our time engaging in it. We recognize it for what it is. We attract those who are meant to be in our cipher to do this work. And what will happen is what always happens. When people are outside of what is popping, they want to be inside what's popping. The way to deconstruct and the way to exercise, like in my estimation, some really radical shit has to happen on behalf of women in general, like women of color in general. Okay, so women in general, women of color more specifically, and Black women most specifically. I don't ever hesitate or apologize for it. And when I say Black women, I mean Black skinned women. You understand? Wherever you are from, whatever you identify as your land of origin, Black skinned women. You feel me? And we have to be unapologetic about that. I really appreciate this last chapter that we read when she brought up the stories about the 2 enslaved women and their specific relationship with the white women in their lives. And, you know, I just appreciate that because it puts so much into context that we will discuss later because I've been on here for 2.5 hours. But this is the purpose of the book club, is to have these more deep, intimate conversations. So for the last 3 months, even though you guys have been responding through messages, comments, and I try as I can to address those. For the last 3 months, y'all have essentially been listening to me read to you and have, epiphanous interventions every now and again. The thing that's really great about the book club is that it is fully interactive. I facilitate those book clubs through Zoom so that everybody can actively participate and we can like sharpen our blades, if you will. You feel me? Sharpen the blades. Iron sharpen iron. What I may see, what I may extract from the book, you may see something that I totally missed, like the sister did earlier. I forget who it was. What was it? Who was it? Was it? I forget who it was, but you know who you was. Oh yeah, Soulless Love, right? So I heard something different, even as I'm reading it, than she did. And she was like, no, I think she means this. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what she means. Thank you so much. You feel me? So it's really exciting. I love doing the book club thing. Like I told you, the last book club I facilitated led to the founding of the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. You feel me? So these book clubs are not, I told you, I don't do shit for entertainment. Just so you know, this is work. This is the fulfillment of work that is the consequence of a call on my life by the mother to call in the rest of us. You understand? So everything, like I said, book clubs, any events that I do, any workshops that I do is centered in the same thing. So the book club is always really deep and impactful and visceral. And we come out new from the book club. We come out with new ideas. We come out invigorated. We come out understanding so much more, right? So much has been hidden from us. And this is a part of the work. This is a university that we're conducting right now. This is the beginnings of the school that the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence is going to create. Okay, so I look forward to that. I will be sending out details very soon about the coming book club, how to get up on it. And the first time I tried to do a book club, I tried to do it like open, like where anybody could join in. But trolls are a reality these days. And for whatever reason, Zoom doesn't have any safeguards against people trolling your pages. So it does have to be closed, the book club. And I'll have to recheck about how many I can have. I don't remember which subscription I have and like what's the limit, but it will be first come, first serve. So whoever can get on can get in. I will be sending private links to those who specifically say, I want to participate in the book club, right? And we'll move from there. So that's it. We finished 3 days early. So I did it. We're done. All right. So get yourself together. If you haven't gotten the book, Pure Lust, Elemental Feminist Philosophy by Mary Daly, which we just finished, get the book. Okay? Get the book. If you have not been following the whole time the reading of this book, you are in luck. All you have to do is go to my YouTube channel, which is, I appreciate it, Grace. If you have not been following along this whole time, but what you have caught has piqued your interest, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is at Daughter of the Fates with an S. Fates, Fates, Daughter of the Fates, YouTube. Okay, you have to put at Daughter of the Fates, or it'll bring up a whole bunch of other weird stuff. Okay, go in there. You'll see the book, all the readings. I'm gonna try to put them all because they were all over the place. So I'll put them all in the, I have like what do you call them? Folders on your YouTube channel. I'll put it in audiobooks. I'll put it in the folder that says audiobooks. All the books that I've read, I will place in audiobooks. So you can see, I think it's 5 books that I've read so far for you guys. So I'll put them all in audiobooks so you can find them easily. And you don't have to sit and watch me. I know I'm pretty, But you can always listen while you're trying to go to sleep, listen while you're washing the dishes, listen while you're stuck in traffic. You know, you can listen without having to see my beautiful face, you see? So get caught up if you're not caught up. Get hip to the game if you ain't been hip. Get the book if you ain't got the book, because the second Wednesday in January, we begin the deep dive into this book, Pure Lust. Now, it's not as big and it's not as visceral as The Great Cosmic Mother was, but just to give you an idea, the book club for The Great Cosmic Mother, when we read that book, the book club itself took us 6 months to get through the book. Just studying in the book. And that was like super, it wasn't even like, we couldn't even go that deep into it, or we would have been in the book for a year. You feel me? So this book shouldn't take us that long. It took us 3 months to read. Ideally, it will take us 3 months to complete the deep dive in the book as the book club. And I am thinking only twice a month we will do the book club. Okay. All right. So I appreciate you. My name is Cassandra Faye Floyd, also known as the Daughter of the Fates. I am the founder of the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence, and I will see you again quite possibly tomorrow, which will be the 30th. I might see you tomorrow. I'm going on a women's retreat tomorrow. It's just a day retreat, but I am going on a women's retreat. So depending upon when I get back, because that's up in the mountains, depending upon how late it is when I get back, I may do a live tomorrow. If not tomorrow, definitely I'll do a live for you guys on Sunday. All right. That's it. I love you all. I appreciate you all. Thank you for spending your time with me. And I will see you again this weekend. And in the meantime, Happy New Year. Get your celebration on. Do your little New Year's rituals, whatever those are. Clean off the old year. Prep for the new, whatever your rituals are. And I will see you again this weekend. Peace.